It's the morning star drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the morning star drive, you know.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, July 27th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is going on today? It is Tuesday already, guys, so we got some coronavirus updates, current news from around the world, we got some sports news, and also looking into the book of 1 Samuel. Alright guys, how are you doing today? Yes, it's Tuesday. Monday's in the books, and now we can start this week off. You know, we got the Monday over with, just getting ourselves back into it. And now I'm very grateful and thankful for all of you joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. Keep liking and commenting, and I want to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. What's going on tonight? Tonight is, it is one of the last, I think it's the last, this vlog type style. It's going to be the last vlog of, what do you call it? This last vlog of Espresso with Sky. Not saying it's the last video, but starting next week, we'll be doing a lot more of the spiritual content. So that's something that we're going to look forward to too. Things that you can show to your newcomers and stuff like that also. Also, last Sunday edition, who did we meet last Sunday edition? We met Rose Lederman from Houston, Texas over there in the U.S., Really cool interview. I was really shocked. She's another person evangelized from Japan. Japan has evangelized tons of people from the U.S., but they just do such a great job. But it's a fun, insightful interview. Hope you guys really enjoy it, so make sure to check out the Sunday edition next week. Last night, also, I had the Monday Zoom Bible study, and that will be posted on Patreon today. All right, so let's get this show started on the road. So, who is today's featured artist of the day on this wonderful Tuesday? We have Diawings from Korea, and we're going to play one of their older songs called Ideal World. The second song is going to be Justar Aiden Verdi from New Zealand with Hot Guy in the Corner, her latest single. And of course, last but not least, from Japan, we have Amatsu Sora with the cover from John Legend, All of Me. All right, guys. So, what day is it today? It's actually the 27th, which means 57 days in. Last 2 weeks have commenced for this 70-day prayer condition. We have less than 2 weeks, so I hope that you guys can finish off really strong, and just make sure you keep in a little prayer for all these member artists from around the world.
Hey, 네가 뭔데 내 맘을 자꾸 상하게 해. 괜히 쓸데없이 건드려 아프게 해.
에이, 내가 왜 너 따위에 다쳐 아파해야 해. 아이
아이 별것도 아니잖아 그때. Why 별의별 가스 killing me. I'm sorry but need it sorry I'm sorry 너무 거슬려 I can't stand it no more.
I want brand new I want revolution
날마다 해가 떠서 지더라 In this ideal world
분위긴 필요 없어 넌 그냥 질서에 맞춰 법은 정해져 있고 넌 그냥 즐기면 돼 분위긴 것들 뿐이야 넌 그냥 질서에 맞춰 법은 완벽하니까 넌 그냥 즐기면 돼
아야야 ideal world
Hey, 이미 네 마음 다 알고 노래 부르잖아 이제 잘난 체 좀 그만해 조용히 해
에이 트렌디한 흐름을 따라와 You're so out of style
I'm sorry but I'm sorry I don't care 한 번도 두 번도 아니고 넌 여전해 네가 뭔데 야 별거 아니잖냐 야 잠자코 있지 한사 커다란 채 이제껏 좀 잡아가 야 원하는 대로 let go 말하는 대로 let go 가식 따위는 let go 가식 따위도 let go 하 웃기지마 여기 끼지마
날마다 날이 떠서 지더라 In this ideal world
분위긴 필요 없어 넌 그냥 질서에 맞춰 법은 정해져 있고 넌 그냥 즐기면 돼 분위긴 것들 뿐이야 넌 그냥 질서에 맞춰 법은 완벽하니까 넌 그냥 즐기면 돼
You're so out of style 여기 질서에 맞춰 법은 정해져 있고 그 안에 즐기면 돼 분위긴 거들 뿐이야 시선을 신경 쓰지 마 법은 완벽하니까 믿고 즐기면 돼 분위긴 필요 없어 네 안에 질서에 맞춰 법은 완벽하니까 그냥 믿고 즐기면 돼 분위긴 거들 뿐이야 시선을 의식하지 마 법은 완벽하니까 당당히 즐기면 돼 아야야 알제 world
Who are you? A mystery, a little bit hard to see. I'm starting to believe you might be what I need. Even in shadow, you look so nice. Can't wait to see you step into the bright lights. You're kinda shy and so am I to do something, something. If I shake myself up, then I gotta say one thing. This one thing to you, hot guy in the corner. I don't know your name. Hot guy in the corner. Isn't it such a shame? When you were always there, hoping you turn your way and say hey. Hot guy in the corner, see my face in your face. I could trip in these heels, eyes are spinning wheels. How can I keep my chill when you give me all the feels? Is that a halo? Is that a crown? Look at you, look at me, look you up and down. Take me out, I didn't wear all this for nothing, nothing. Hold my hand up, I got a chance to do something, do something with you. Hot guy in the corner, I don't know your name. Hot guy in the corner, isn't it such a shame? When you were always there, hoping you turn your way and say hey. Hot guy in the corner, to see my face in your face. All eyes on the hot guy in the corner, they're my eyes on the hot guy in the corner. All eyes on the hot guy in the corner, they're my eyes. All eyes on the hot guy in the corner, they're my eyes on the hot guy in the corner. All eyes on the hot guy in the corner, they're my eyes, my eyes. You were always there, hoping to turn away and say hey, I'm coming for you. I see my face in your face. Can't wait. I see my face in your face. Can't wait.
What would I do without your smart mouth? Drawing me and you kicking me out. You got my head spinning, no kidding, I can't pin you down. What's going on with that beautiful mind? I'm your magical mystery ride. And I'm so dizzy to not hit me, but I'll be alright. My head in the water, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning, even when I lose the wind. 'Cause I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. Oh. How many times do I have to tell you? Even when you're crying, you're beautiful too. The world is breathing you down. I'm alone through every mood. You're my downfall, you're my muse, my worst distraction, my rhythm and blues. I can't stop sitting, it's breathing in my head for you. My hair's underwater, but I'm breathing fine. You're crazy and I'm out of my mind. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning, even when I lose the wind. 'Cause I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. I'll give you all of you. Curse on the table with both showing hurt. Risking your arms, oh it's hard. 'Cause all of me loves all of you. Rub your curves and on your edges, all your perfect imperfections. Give your all to me, I give my all to you. You're my end and my beginning, even when I lose the wind. 'Cause I give you all of me, and you give me all of you. I'll give you all of me, and you give me all of you. Oh.
And there you have it. That is Amatsu Sora from Japan with the song All of Me. That is a cover of John Legend. Before that, Justar Aiden Verity from New Zealand, and that song was Hot Guy in the Corner, her latest single. And of course, the feature artist of the day was Dio Wings from Korea with Ideal World. And they're coming up with more and more songs, so I'm really looking forward to the new songs from Dio Wings. All right, guys, let's get into some news going on around the world. We'll start off with the coronavirus updates. In the world, 194.8 million cases, 4.1 million deaths at a 2.14% mortality rate. Top 5 countries, we're going to go by daily infection rates and daily death rates. On top, once again, we have Indonesia, 38,000 cases with 1,266 deaths in a single day. And that now is on top by far, because Brazil, who's usually in second or first, they're only at 600 for today, or for yesterday, right? So Indonesia's staying on top. Let's really pray for them as we have members in a church over there too. India in second, also with 38,000 cases, 411 deaths in a day. The UK, 29,000 cases, but only 28 deaths. Iran, 27,000 cases, 268 deaths. And then Russia with 24,000 cases and 779 deaths. Over here in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, once again, we already told you they're on top with 38,000 cases in a day with 1,266 deaths. Malaysia in second with 17,000 cases, 92 deaths in a day, which is not too bad. And then Thailand, 15,000 cases, 129 deaths. And those of you guys don't know, I posted this on my Instagram, but I finally got my vaccination date. It'll be on Sunday, August 1st, and I will be getting my first vaccination. I believe it'll be a Pfizer shot, so I'm super happy about this. It will help me to travel a lot better too. All right, so let's go into the top 3 news for today. We're going to first go over to China, where there's a typhoon that's sweeping into the eastern China after, this is right after the flooding chaos from last week. A major typhoon has hit China's eastern coast just days after deadly floods devastated parts of the country. Typhoon, the name of the typhoon is Typhoon Infa, known in China as Yanhua, and made landfall in the city of Zhaoshan at 12:30 local time, state media reported. Transport links are suspended and people have been told to stay indoors. Trees have been uprooted and there has been some flooding. Dozens of ships have been evacuated from a busy port south of Shanghai. However, there has yet been no reports of major damage, which is great news. And the typhoon follows a period of historic flooding that caused widespread damage and killed at least 58 people in central China. Now, emergency crews are still working around the clock to rescue survivors and provide aid to the tens of millions of people affected by the floods. Typhoon Infa could bring more torrential downpours to the stricken region in the coming days, and officials fear it could hamper rescue and recovery efforts. Now, the typhoon reportedly has wind speeds of up to 137 kilometers an hour. For those of you in the US, it's 85 miles per hour, according to Reuters news agency. And Japan's meteorological agency forecasts the storm will track west towards the city of Hangzhou. Now, from Sunday, the typhoon will bring long periods of extremely heavy rainfall. And this is from China's National Meteorological Center. And it added that coastal areas should guard against the combined impact of wind, rain, and tides. Second on the news, we're going to go over to the U.S. Now, everyone knows Fauci, right? Anthony Fauci says U.S. heading in wrong direction as cases rise. The U.S. is heading in the wrong direction on the coronavirus pandemic as infections surge among the unvaccinated, a top health expert has warned. Dr. Anthony Fauci said the Delta variant of the coronavirus was driving the spike in areas with low vaccination rates. He said health officials were considering revising mask guidance for vaccinated Americans to curb cases. Now, they're also offering booster jabs to vulnerable people. That was also under review. At the moment, there's over 162.7 million people, or about 49% of the population, have been fully vaccinated in the U.S., official data shows. And the U.S. has been a world leader in jab uptake until April, when vaccination rates started to drop off. Now, vaccination rates are particularly low in southern states, where fewer than half of residents have received their first dose in some cases. Meanwhile, daily coronavirus infections are on the rise again after numbers fell in May and June. Now, the resurgence has added to the more than 34 million cases and 610,000 deaths recorded so far in the U.S., and the trend has been attributed in part to the rapid spread of the highly transmissible Delta variant of the coronavirus. Now, the sharpest increase in COVID cases are in states with lower vaccination rates like Florida, Texas, and Missouri. And earlier this week, the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy said 99.5% of COVID deaths were occurring among unvaccinated people. And in his interview with CNN, Dr. Fauci said local leaders in areas with low vaccination rates needed to do more to encourage people to get jabbed. And he also said it's very, he's kind of not unheartened, but heartened. So it's a good thing to hear the Republican governors of Arkansas, Florida promoting vaccinations in their states, and both leaders have been critical of Dr. Fauci's advice in the past. So as the nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Fauci has been a key advisor to President Biden and his predecessor, Donald Trump, through the pandemic, and Dr. Fauci said he was involved in discussions to change mask guidance issued by the U.S. CDC. Now, as it stands, the CDC says people who are fully vaccinated can resume activities that you did before the pandemic without wearing a mask. And Dr. Fauci said local governments could issue their own rules under the current CDC guidance. But he noted that some local governments had reinstated indoor and public mask requirements to curb rising infections. In Los Angeles County, masks are now required indoors for both vaccinated and unvaccinated people. So that's news going on in the U.S. Of course, what we see in the news, one thing that we see that's really, really good is, like say, for instance, the U.S. and U.K., their daily infection rates are growing. However, the daily death rates are very, very low, especially because there is a high vaccination rate among the population, much more than other countries. Last but not least, there's some quite good news, I think. Could the COVID vaccine be taken as a pill? So right now, protection against the coronavirus comes via an injection, but in the future, those vaccines could come from inhalers or even pills. So in a white area laboratory in Medicon Village, one of southern Sweden's largest science parks, chemist Ingemo Anderson holds up a thin plastic inhaler half the size of a matchbox. Now, her team is hoping that this tiny product could play a big role in the global fight against the coronavirus, allowing people to take powdered versions of future vaccines at home. So they basically said it's much easier, it's really cheap to produce, and you don't need someone to inject it for you. So it costs way less money. So the company's called Iconovo. Iconovo. I'm not sure what it's called, like how to pronounce it, but it's collaborating with an immunology research startup in Stockholm, which has developed a dry powder vaccine against the coronavirus, and it uses manufactured coronavirus proteins, unlike Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, which uses RNA or DNA that code for these proteins and can withstand temperatures of up to 40 degrees Celsius. Now, this is a huge contrast to the conditions needed to store the current commonly available coronavirus vaccines approved by the WHO, which are all in liquid form. So they have to be kept in tough glass vials in temperatures as low as -70 before being transferred to fridges, or they lose effectiveness, known as the cold chain. But the game changer that you can see, if it's distributed by powder, then the vaccine is extremely easily transferred without the cold chain, and it can be administered without the need for healthcare providers, which is great news, right? So the company is currently testing its vaccines on the beta South African and alpha UK variants of the coronavirus, and it believes it could prove especially useful in speeding up vaccine rollouts in Africa, where there are currently no homegrown vaccine manufacturers and warmer climates and limited electricity supplies that have led to major challenges when it comes to storing and delivering coronavirus vaccines before they expire. Now, there's still some way to go before trials indicate the full potential of the ISR's air-dried vaccine, including whether it can offer the same level of protection as the current list of vaccines approved by the WHO. So far it's only been tested on mice, but Iconovo have raised enough funding to begin studies on humans within the next 2 months. So this is great news. Lots of optimism within the medical community that if this powdered vaccine is proved successful, they can revolutionize the global response to the coronavirus pandemic, as well as making it easier to store and distribute vaccines for other illnesses. So this is great news if this can happen. Inhalers and pills would be way better than needles, all right? So that is the top 3 news for today. So let's get into some sports, and we're going to look especially at the Olympics. We are just 3 days into the Olympics, and a lot of things have happened. We'll start off with the Olympics medal tracker, and in first place we have China with 12 medals, the US with 10, and then Russia with 7 medals. So let's take a look at what's going on. We'll start off with basketball and some stunning news as the French beat the U.S. men's basketball team and end a 25-game win streak since 2004. The U.S. men's team, it didn't look too good when they had their, the warm-up matches, and they lost to both Nigeria and Australia, and then now they just lost to France. So the medal hopes, there's still a medal hope, and everyone still thinks that they're a favorite, but it doesn't look too good right now, and I'm really, really hoping that they kind of pull their bootstraps up and are able to pull off the gold medal. Let's just hope that they get through qualifying if they've already lost to France. On the French team, it was Evan Fournier who poured in 28 points, and the highest points for the U.S. was Drew Holiday, just coming off the NBA Finals championship. He had 18 points in just under 28 minutes of action coming off the bench. He was the only bright spot in their struggles and helped them to a 6-point lead in the fourth quarter, but they eventually lost everything. This team is just stacked with all NBA players. Something's going down. Something's wrong. I'm not sure if this is God's judgment, but they have lost their first match in round-robin qualifying. In swimming is very interesting. World records are being broken by the Australians. Like, Australians are always known for as being the strong swimmers. Already in the women's medley, Australia destroys the Olympic record. Well, not destroys, but yeah, it was they beat the world record, which is really, really fast. And then after that, this one's even crazier. The women's 100-meter backstroke. It was broken 3 times in a day. 3 times, guys. So it started off with Canada in the preliminary heats. A Canadian beats the world record. I'm super happy. And then the next heat, 2 minutes later, the US breaks that record. And then in the final heat, the Australian Kaylee McCowan, she basically destroys all of those other 2 world records, and now she has it at 57.88 seconds for the backstroke 100 meters. So that was pretty incredible. I'm sure there's more and more of these that are going to happen, and I will keep you updated with what's going on around with the Olympics. All right, guys? So that means we're going to go into the golden time. It's time for us to be a little bit more spiritual. How can we be spiritual? We got to start off with some praise and worship, giving glory to the Holy Trinity. So we're going to start off with Now We Are Going Ahead, and then into Ideal World 2, and then Let's Overcome the World. So as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving power, glory, and honor to the Holy Trinity.
Finally, pushing ahead, our new songs move ahead of the world. Those worldly songs are now fading behind us. They're behind, falling even more towards death. God gave the melodies, the Spirit gave the words and lyrics. So I became the singer, and I sing the new songs. The songs of life are the new songs in this new time of life. Heaven's new songs overflow, going ahead of the world. Since you have now become the Trinity's counterparts of love, sing the new songs, sing all the beautiful songs of these times. Sing the new songs, go on and sing along. Everyone sing along for all time. Until the world ends, let's sing these eternal songs, songs of eternal love, now and always. Let's sing the new songs. The songs of life are the new songs in this new time of life. Heaven's new songs overflow, going ahead of the world. Since you have now become the Trinity's counterparts of love, sing the new songs, sing all the beautiful songs of these times. Sing the new songs. and sing along for all time until the world ends. Let's sing these eternal songs, songs of eternal love, now and always. Let's sing the new songs.
Let's all run, Providence calls, history awaits. Let us rise up and shine, heaven's truth. Now let us go to the place where our Lord reigns, there we will live, valuably as gold. We can fulfill the hope of the next 1,000 years. Hey, young people, wake up and realize. Hey, young people, hurry, come on. You are precious, young people of today. You're shining bright, young people of today. Young people come, young people come. It's the world ruled by the Lord, the new history will fulfill God's purpose for mankind. Now the words being proclaimed by our Lord here in this place. History is made here in Providence, the ideal world. Let's all run, Providence calls, history awaits. Let us rise up and shine, heaven's truth. Now let us go to the place where our Lord reigns, there we will live, valuably as gold. We can fulfill the hope of the next 1,000 years. Hey, young people, wake up and realize. Hey, young people, hurry, come on. You are precious, young people of today. You're shining bright, young people of today. Young people come, young people come. It's the world ruled by the Lord, the new history will fulfill God's purpose for mankind. Now the words being proclaimed by our Lord here in this place. History is made here in Providence, the ideal world. Now the words being proclaimed by our Lord here in this place. History is made here in Providence, the ideal world. This is Providence, the ideal
Let's overcome the world, overcome our hardships and send our fears away. Come from our hearts and send with the wind.
Spirit, let your cares fly. You and I both, we must go on. Our hearts have not changed. Like the waves rising and falling, we may waver and be shaken, nevertheless. We will remain on the same path until the end. Our destination set, both you and I, your hand in mine, our hearts as one. We go on as one. We must support, help each other, care for each other as we love and adore only God, the Holy Spirit. We will look up to them, longing for heaven. That's our joy, and this love never rests, now and always, just as time flows, as the waves crash endlessly. Let's overcome the world, overcome our hardships and send our fears away. Come from our hearts and sent with the wind. On the wind of the Spirit, let your cares fly. You and I both, we must go on. Our hearts have not changed.
And there you have it. That is Let's Overcome the World, one of my favorite songs of the new ones. Before that was Ideal World 2, and then of course now we are going ahead. All right, so let's get into some word study for today. And of course, every Tuesday we will go into the scriptures of the week. And of course, we don't have much to say about the Complete Testament Bible, Complete Testament Gospel, but we do want to talk about the reference scriptures. And this week it is about the book of 1 Samuel. So what is let's get into the background origins of 1 Samuel, or we could even just like go into 1 and 2 Samuel, because originally they were a single book, right? So 1 and 2 Samuel are named after the person God used to establish the monarchy in Israel. Now, Samuel not only anointed both Saul and David, Israel's first two kings, but he also gave definition to the new order of God's rule over Israel. Now, Samuel's role as God's representative in this period of Israel's history is close to that of Moses, since he, more than any other person, provided for covenant continuity in the transition from the rule of the judges to that of the kingships or monarchy. So 1 and 2 Samuel are originally one book. It was divided into two parts by the translators of the Septuagint, okay? And that is the pre-Christian Greek translation of the Old Testament. And those of you who don't know, in the time between Malachi and Jesus, there were four dominant empires that were ruling over Israel. In the beginning, it was the Medo-Persians, and then it switched to the Greeks, which was the longest time. So Alexander the Great came in, and in 13 years conquered the known world. And then after him, Alexander the Great dies, and the kingdom was split into two parts. It was split into the Seleucids and the Ptolemaics. Okay. Now, at the time of the Ptolemaics, and this was the ruling part of the Greek of the Greek Empire at that time, was the Ptolemaics. And during that time, everything became Greek. And even the Jews began to speak Greek more than they spoke Hebrew. And this is where the Septuagint was actually translated during this time. So it's the Greek version of the Old Testament Bible. And during this time, this is when they split the book of Samuel into 1 and 2 Samuel, right? Now, the title of the book has varied from time to time, having been designated the first and second books of kingdoms, and that's what they call it in the Septuagint, and then the first and second Kings, which is from the Vulgate, and then the first and second Samuel, which is a Hebrew tradition, and most modern versions use this title. Many questions have arisen pertaining to the literary character, authorship, and date of both 1st and 2nd Samuel. Now, certain features of the book suggest that it was compiled with the use of a number of originally independent sources, which the author may have incorporated into his own composition as much as possible in their original unedited form. Who the author was can't be known, right? Since the book itself gives no indication of his identity. So whoever he was, he doubtless, right, had access to records of the life and times of Samuel, Saul, and David. An explicit reference in the book itself is made to only one such source, which is called the Book of Jashar, right? But the writer of Chronicles refers to 4 others that pertain to this period: the Book of the Annals of King David, and the records of Samuel the seer, the records of Nathan the prophet, and the records of Gad the seer, right? So it's quite interesting. So the contents and theme of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, it's basically about like kingship and covenant, right? So like Samuel relates God's establishment of a political system in Israel headed by a human king, and before the author describes this momentous change in the structure of the theocracy, right? So God's kingly rule over his people, and he effectively depicts the complexity of its context, and the following events provide both historical and theological background for the beginning of the monarchy. So in the beginning, of course, it's about the birth, youth, and call of Samuel. And in a book dealing for the most, this is 1 Samuel verses chapters 1 through 3, and it's dealing for the most part with the reigns of Israel's first 2 kings, Saul and David. Now, it's significant that the author chose not to include a birth narrative of either of these men, but to describe the birth of their forerunner and anointer, the prophet Samuel, which is quite interesting, right? So this in itself accentuates the importance the author attached to Samuel's role in the events that follow, and he seems to be saying in a subtle way that flesh and blood are to be subordinated to word and spirit in the process of the establishment of kingship, right? Which means its most important part is the prophet, the one connected to God, right? And we just read is like, it shows right there. They say nothing about the birth of David and nothing about the birth of Saul, but only about Samuel, which shows that it's about the spiritual authority that matters more. And this is why when you look at chapters 1 through 3, it should be viewed as most importantly related to what follows, not as a more likely component of the book of Judges or as a loosely attached prefix to the rest of like 1st, 2nd Samuel. So kingship is given its birth and then nurtured by the prophetic word and work of the prophet Samuel. And moreover, the events of Samuel's nativity thematically anticipates the story of God's working that is narrated in the rest of the book. The second theme we're going to look at is the arc narratives, right? And this is kind of in chapters 4 through 6. And this section kind of describes how the Ark of God was captured by the Philistines. And then after, God wreaked havoc on several Philistine cities. And then it was eventually returned back to Israel. And these narratives reveal the folly of Israel's notion that possession of the ark automatically guaranteed victory over their enemies. So they also display the awesome power of the Lord, Yahweh, the God of Israel, right? And his superiority over the Philistine god Dagon. And the Philistines were forced to confess openly their helplessness against God's power by the return of the ark to Israel. And the entire ark episode performs a vital function in placing Israel's subsequent sinful desire for a human king in proper perspective. Third one, it comes from chapter 7. Okay, as Samuel as a judge and a deliverer. So when Samuel called Israel to repentance and renewed dedication to the Lord intervened mightily in Israel's behalf and gave victory over the Philistines. And this narrative reaffirms the authority of Samuel as a divinely ordained leader. And at the same time, it provides evidence of divine protection and blessing for God's people when they place their confidence in the Lord and live in obedience to their covenant obligations. So when you look at all these things, all the materials from chapters 1 through 7, we just went over, serves as kind of that necessary preface for the narratives of chapters 8 through 12, which describes the rise and establishment of kingship in Israel. And the author has masterfully arranged the stories in chapters 8 through 12 in order to accentuate the serious theological conflict surrounding the historical events. And in the study of these chapters, scholars have often noted the presence of a tension or ambivalence in the attitude towards the monarchy. Like, so, for instance, on the one hand, Samuel is commanded by the Lord to give the people a king. But on the other hand, their request for a king is considered a sinful rejection of the Lord. So these seemingly conflicting attitudes towards the monarchy must be understood in the context of Israel's covenant relationship with the Lord. Now, Moses had anticipated Israel's desire for a human king. That's all the way back in Deuteronomy chapter 17. But Israelite kingship was to be compatible with the continued rule of the Lord over his people as their great king. Instead, when the elders asked Samuel to give them a king, they rejected the Lord's kingship over them, and their desire was for a king such as the nations around them had to lead them in battle and give them a sense of national security and unity. Now, the request for a king constituted a denial of their covenant relationship to the Lord, who was supposed to be their king. Moreover, the Lord not only had promised to be their protector, but had also repeatedly demonstrated his power in their behalf, and most recently in the Ark narratives, which was chapters 4 through 6, as well as in the great victory won over the Philistines under the leadership of Samuel. Nevertheless, the Lord instructed Samuel to give the people a king, and by divine appointment, Saul was brought into contact with Samuel, and Samuel was directed to anoint him privately as king. And subsequently, Samuel gathered the people at Mizpah, where after again admonishing them concerning their sin in desiring a king, he presided over the selection of a king by lot. The lot fell on Saul and publicly designated him as the one whom God had chosen. Saul did not immediately assume his royal office, but returned home to work his fields. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead were threatened by Nahash the Ammonite, Saul rose to the challenge, gathered an army, and led Israel to victory in battle, and his success placed a final seal of divine approval on Saul's selection to be king of and occasioned the inauguration of his reign in Gilgal. Right? So the question that still needed resolution then was not so much whether Israel should have a king, but rather how they could maintain their covenant with God. That was the most important part, is preserving the theocracy, like, God's chosen person, the central figure, now that they had a human king. The problem was resolved when Samuel called the people to repentance and renewal of their allegiance to the Lord on the very occasion of the inauguration of Saul as king. And by establishing kingship in the context of covenant renewal, Samuel placed the monarchy in Israel on a radically different footing from that in surrounding nations. So the king in Israel was not to be autonomous in his authority and power. Rather, he was to be subject to the law of the Lord and the word of the prophet. And this was to be true not only for Saul, but also for all the kings who would occupy the throne in Israel in the future. The king was to be an instrument of the Lord's rule over his people, and the people as well as the king were to continue to recognize the Lord as their ultimate sovereign. Right, so Saul, obviously we know the story of Saul. He demonstrated that he was unwilling to submit to the requirements of his theocratic office when he disobeyed the instructions of the prophet Samuel in preparation for battle against the Philistines, and when he refused to totally destroy the Amalekites as he had been commanded to do by the word of the Lord through Samuel, and he ceased to be an instrument of the Lord's rule over his people. And these abrogations of the requirements of his theocratic office led to his rejection as king. Right, so the remainder of 1 Samuel depicts the Lord's choice of David to be Saul's successor, and then describes the long road by which David is prepared for accession to the throne. And although Saul's rule became increasingly anti-theocratic in nature, David refused to usurp the throne by forceful means, but left his accession to office in the Lord's hands. And eventually, of course, Saul was wounded in battle with the Philistines and, fearing capture, took his own life. And 3 of Saul's sons, including David's loyal friend Jonathan, were killed in the same battle. And that is kind of what we're looking at when it comes to the book of 1 Samuel. All right, guys? So that is the word study for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed that, which means it's time for us to go into the song of choice for today. And every Tuesday, we're going to go into some Korean music, right? And in this Korean music, we're going to do, once again, Kim Pheal and Kwon Jin-eun. Okay, and these two were in this. They're at least Kim Pheal is a real legit singer in Korea right now. Got a great voice, got a good texture to his voice, but he was found out. They found out in a TV show, kind of like American Idol. It's called Superstar K. And this is one of their performances, amazing performances, a rendition of a song that's called "Don't Worry, My Love." All right, so let's welcome Kim Pheal and Kwon Jin-eun Kwon Jin-eun with the song "Don't Worry, My Love."
그대여 아무 걱정 말아요.
그대여 아무 걱정하지 말아요. 우리 함께 노래합시다.
그대 아픈 기억들 모두 그대여 그대 가슴 깊이 묻어버리고
지나간 것은 지나간 대로 그런 의미가 있죠. 떠난 이에게 노래하세요. 후회 없이 사랑했노란 말해요. 후회 없이 사랑했노란 말해요. 그런 의미가 있죠. 떠난 이에게 노래하세요. 후회 없이 사랑했노란 말해요. 그대여 아무 걱정 말아요. 그대여 아무 걱정 말아요. 그대여 아무 걱정 말아요. 그대여 아무 걱정 말아요.
What an awesome song. Wow. That is Kim Feel and Kwon Jin-un, and that song is Don't Worry My Love. And this is a live performance from the audition. And this was considered just wow. If you guys, I'll put the link in the description, so when you guys see it, you'll see how sincere the singing is. You could feel it too, couldn't you, right? I could feel it too, but great song, great song. All right, guys. So that is leading into the last section for today. On Tuesday, I'm going to go over some new thoughts that I'm going to continue from yesterday. Yesterday, I talked about the success in the world. And when you reach the top of the world, it's much different than the people in the middle and the bottom, right? And the people in the middle will think that the people at the top are crazy, or they think they're doing too much. And the reality is, it is too much for someone at the mid-level. So when we look at Sunsim, he's at the top of the faith level, and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. Who can keep up with him? And the answer is no one, unless you're at that level. Right? And the same in the world of business, in the world of sports, in the world of whatever it is, music. If you're at the top, you're doing something so much better or so much greater than what normal people do. Now, this brings me into the next section is the need for people at the top of their industries. There is an absolute need. And I'm going to give you an example of the Lord's church. Now, when you look at all the churches in Korea, the churches in Korea are all really good, but of course, the Whitestone Church, it is incomparable, right? And one of the reasons is you have all the elites, the top of the tops they all went to that church at the same time. So when you look at, like, for instance, the praise band is ridiculous, guys. It is, isn't it? Like, you have like Pastor Chung Ho, who's like the main singer. You have Hwa Young, she's also one of the main singers from what was that group called again? They were called oh man, I forgot that group, the three girls. I know all three of them. It's just that I can't remember what their name was. Oh, Jerry Team. They were called the Jerry Team. And then you have the praise band, which is ridiculous. And the one thing that makes them so amazing and easy for people to go to and be inspired and moved, because they're all at the very top. Which means that one of the things that they do so well there is specialization. And it's interesting because when you look at the countries that are not going to have, when your countries are a bit smaller, you can't well, you can, but it's a little bit harder to. So what happens is all the people are jack of their trade, jack of all trades. So if you look at a head leader is like someone who does head leading, they lecture, they go out to evangelize, they do the tech, they'll do some instrument, like they do a bit of everything. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is like, well, should we not do that? No, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. However, you're not going to reach ultimate peak levels of a church to become that great. Like, you need to specialize. It's not about being someone who wants to help out in everything. You have to think to yourself is, one thing that I look at myself is, I'm specializing in lecturing and speaking and those types of things. That's what I'm going to specialize in more than anything else. This is why a podcast is good for me, because it's about speaking, right? Lecturing, it's about speaking. Everything is about kind of that area for me. Doing YouTube, it's about me speaking. Everything is that area. It's specialization. And if we specialize in these areas, what happens is you're going to get the highest level in those areas. Look at the Whitestone Church. It's the highest level of tech, highest level of camera work, highest level of praise, highest level of orchestra, highest level of preaching. They have everyone in like specializing in their areas, and this is why they can have these crazy, amazing churches. Like, I wouldn't say it's any different. Look at like Christian churches too, like Hillsong. Hillsong has like the best in instruments, the best in singers. They're all going to that place and they're teaching other people how to do proper praise and worship. They have their own seminary school, whatever it is, right? So when we look at this, it's like, oh, the reason why they're doing so well is because they have experts in every area. Now, if Providence churches want to reach that level too, is not about us being the jack of all trades and being able to do everything. That's not what it's about. It's not about us doing everything. The issue is, can we specialize? Look at Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. They're at high levels when their preachers are at high levels. The praise is at high levels. The tech is at high levels. Finance, real estate, lecturing, whatever it is, they're all at these like really high levels. These are people that are professionals in their area. And that's why I kind of look at Malaysia too. I'm in Malaysia right now. It's like kind of Malaysia's the next one ready to go, because I see tons of people specializing here. But the one thing that we can't do is try to make everyone head leaders and make everyone, everyone's going to be going to like full-time Providence. And the answer is no. It's all about specializing. So in a church with 2,000 people, of course they're going to have like 20, 30 people that are being raised to be head leaders and to get to that level. But that's at a church with 2,000 people. You might have 50 people who are getting trained for that level. But if you have churches at 100, 200 people, you can't expect like 10 people to be raised as full-time Providence people. That's just unrealistic, right? It's unrealistic. You need to specialize. You need to have those few people, 2, 3 people being raised for the next level. That's what we need. And I hope that, in order for us to really understand about raising the level of a high performance church, meaning everyone is professional in their level. The spiritual people have to be spiritual professionals in prayer, spiritual professionals in preaching, spiritual professionals in the word. But when it comes to the other parts, we do need professionals in tech. We do need professionals in camera work, professionals in editing, professionals in lighting, professionals at every single area. We absolutely need these people in order for your churches to reach the next level. No matter what, even though we may have good word, one of the things that Sunsteam always talks about is the packaging. And the packaging makes a difference. How great would it be is, when Pastor Joan is doing like the Holy Spirit movement, one word. She says this one word and then all of a sudden the music starts to play and you're like, how did they know? Right? They're so good at it. And even if they change the songs, they are ready to go. In order for our churches to reach that high level, we need that specialization when everyone specializes instead of doing a bunch of things at a mediocre level. If we have a bunch of people doing things at a mediocre level, the church will only remain at a mediocre level. And these people will not be taught at the high level. Interior design, tech, camera, sound, lighting. And that's just for like the basic stuff for a church to run for a service, right? Can you imagine what else is needed, right? What else is needed to make the church look nice, make it feel welcoming and warm so that people would want to come? And that is something that we have to realize at that next level more than anything else, that we need to worry about specialization. We need churches to grow beyond 200. And once it reaches beyond 200, this is when we realize, this is when churches begin to have to reach that level of specialization. Pastor Chung Ho has been basically doing praise for 20 years. It's really weird because it's frowned upon, or like, what? You're still doing praise after 5 years? Oh, you should be moving up. What does it mean to move up? Moving up means what? Moving up should be moving up in the level of your expertise. And now Pastor Chung Ho is what? He is also teaching people how to sing. He's teaching people how to intro the songs when they do praise and worship. He's doing those things to teach them. If you look at the praise band, the original praise band from like 10 years ago, when we started 2010 with the Lord's Church, all those people have been raising the next generation. And that's why now you don't see the same people on bass, the same people on drums. It's moving to the next generation, which is a great sign. They are raising the next generation. But in order to raise the next generation, you need people who are absolutely specialized in preaching, specialized in lecturing, specialized in head leading, specialized in department leading, specialized in assistant leaders, right? The ALs. We need those people constantly, right? And once we have those experts and they're specialized, this is when they're really able to raise the next generation. If you have head leaders, ALs, department leaders, they're all mediocre, they're always going to raise people below them, right? Not going to be as high as they are. And that's when we're going to have the level of the church is always going to be at that, always going to remain at that level. And this is why we really have to think about what do we do next? People need to specialize and be strong at that level more than anything else. All right. So that's one of the big things I've been thinking about, especially when is continuing from yesterday's thoughts too. Hope it's something that makes you guys think a little bit more deeply about your churches and about yourselves too. Is everyone doesn't have to be a head leader. Everyone doesn't have to run full time, but you should specialize in something that's going to help out the church eventually in the future. Okay? So that is my thoughts for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. This is Tuesday. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing Tuesday. And we'll see you guys once again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive, I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, I'm on the Morning Star Drive,